Hi, I'm Appaloosa, and I'd like to welcome to all of those who are attending this introduction to Ayurveda, specifically on pulse reading. This is an intro with lots of knowledge with the hope that you will study and practice over the next few days, weeks, months, or even years, and at your own pace. There is much to learn, and this is just to get your feet wet so that you can start incorporating these techniques into your daily life. I had been interested in attuning to natural law for a while, and during my own healing crisis, I started to incorporate a lot of these rhythms of the planet and proper diet and lifestyle choices. And taking the pulse has been a very informative way for me to be more in tune with my own body and my own physiology and balances and imbalances. But it's a mechanism for your balancing your physiology as well, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So I hope you find this information stimulating as well as purifying, and let's get started. Okay, so we are learning nadi vigyan, that is the Sanskrit word for pulse reading, how you can assess imbalances through pulse diagnosis. Ayurveda is a Sanskrit term. Ayu means life or lifespan, and Veda means science or knowledge, so it can be translated as the science of life or knowledge of lifespan. Nadi Vigyan is the Sanskrit word for pulse diagnosis or pulse reading. Nadi means settled channels of the body, and Vigyan means knowledge or knowledge of the settled channels of the body. Ayurvedic pulse diagnosis, or Nadi Vigyan, is one of the tools used in Ayurveda to assess the level of balance and imbalance in a human physiology by reading the condition of the inner intelligence of the body in terms of the three doshas. Doshas, governing principles of physiology. They have a specific location, a specific function, and a balance. They're assessed through pulse reading, or Nadi Vigyan. So we'll come back to the doshas in a moment. I do want to touch a little bit more on intelligence in nature. Nature has its own system of intelligence. Pancha Mahabhutas means elements in Sanskrit, which are ether, air, fire, earth, and water. We're familiar with those, and those are the building blocks of our universe. Now, an introduction to doshas, on the right there, we see Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So those will be the doshas that we're assessing in the human physiology, but they also have characteristics of these five elements. Vata has ether and air, Pitta has fire and earth, and Kapha has earth and water. And these qualities are also found in our environment at specific times of the day. So our earth has its own rhythms, and our environment also has these rhythms. So the qualities of Vata are found between 2 and 6 a.m. Kapha is found in the environment between 6 and 10 a.m. Pitta is found in the environment between 10 and 2 p.m. Vata is found in the environment between 2 and 6 p.m. And you can see Kapha and Pitta again. So the intelligence is found in nature, but is also found in our own physiology. I like to say the macrocosm to the microcosm. Ayurveda is an ancient and complete medical system over 5,000 years old with roots in India. Maharishi Ayurveda views the body as an expression of intelligence. Disease results from losing connection with this underlying field of intelligence. Maharishi brought transcendental meditation to the United States, and I am studying the Maharishi Ayurveda. So there's something in physics called the measurement theory. What you put your attention on enlivens the object of intention or attention. Our attention has a natural healing and balancing influence on the pulse. It stimulates the natural balancing mechanisms in the body and helps to rectify a growing imbalance. So we'll also come back to that in a moment, but let's go ahead and learn more about Vata dosha. This is something that is going to take a lot of practice, and the more you practice, the more sensitive you will become to recognizing these qualities in your own pulse, but also in the environment around you. Vata dosha, its location is below the umbilicus. It governs colon, bladder, kidney, rectum, anus, bones, waist, and feet, and its element, ether and air. Its functions are transportation, communication, and movement. And on the right side, we will see the gunas, Sanskrit for qualities of Vata. You will notice in your pulse, dry or rough, cold, light, subtle, moving, clear, coarse, and brittle, underneath the Vata finger. Manifestations of a balanced Vata are enthusiasm, inhalation, expiration, movement, balanced development of dhatus or tissues, and balanced release of malas or waste. And let's go on to Pitta dosha. Location is between heart and umbilicus, governs small intestine, plasma, lymph, sweat, and blood. Its element is fire and earth. Its functions, transformation, digestion, and metabolism. So the qualities under the Pitta finger will be slightly oily, hot, sharp, liquid, sour, moving and flowing, and pungent. And manifestations of a balanced Pitta would be sight, softness in the body, intellect, digestion or metabolism, luster, maybe complexion, cheerfulness, happiness, hunger, or appropriate thirst, and heat. Now with Kapha dosha, locations above the heart, governs joints, stomach, adipose tissue, heart, head, and neck. Its elements are earth and water. Its functions, structure, lubrication, and cohesion. The qualities of Kapha under the Kapha finger can be felt as heavy, cold, soft, unctuous, oily, sweet, stable, steady, and sticky. Manifestations of balanced Kapha: strength, binding, restraint, patience, heaviness, forbearance, unctuousness, firmness, potency, absence of greed. Now, as we learn here to take the reading of the pulse, nadi vigyan, let's remember that these are reverberations of consciousness. We are reading the inner intelligence of the body. So we will locate Vata, Pitta, and Kapha using the dominant hand. We will self-assess at the moment. If you're a woman, you will assess your left wrist. If you're a man, you will assess your right wrist. We will feel Vata under the index finger, Pitta under the middle finger, and Kapha under the ring finger. So if you can see my wrist here, I'm going to find the radial bone. And I'm going to keep my fingers together, and I'm going to go down 1/4 of an inch and in 1/4 of an inch, or you can go diagonally towards your the radial artery there. And we are just very lightly placing our fingers upon that point, keeping the fingers together with equal pressure. And we are going to kind of tip the fingers so that they're more perpendicular. And then we will close our eyes and just see what we find there. So that is the technique or instruction on how to take the pulse. We will do that momentarily. So let's come back to the screen. Another couple qualities that we are looking for before we take the pulse. Under the Vata finger or index finger, we can assess the gunas or qualities, but also if you notice the wavy line there, it tends to be moving kind of like a snake. So it may not be as consistent as you see Pitta there, being more of like a sharp point. Pitta is associated with a frog-like quality, and Vata is associated with a snake-like quality. And then under kapha there, kapha is associated with the movement of a swan. So the movement was steady and stable, maybe large there, not as sharp as pitta. So let's stop for a moment and innocently read the pulse. So again, find the radial bone, go in diagonally 1/4 of an inch toward the radial artery. Hopefully you have short fingernails, and lightly just keeping the fingers together, assess what qualities you find. So we can focus our consciousness or awareness under the vata finger first and think about the qualities we find, and then the kapha finger, and then the pitta finger, and then the kapha finger. So once you have done that, it's a good idea to write down as many qualities as you found. And this is doing a reading of the surface pulse. The most changeable layer of the pulse tells us the state of our physiology in the moment the pulse is being taken, like a snapshot in time. Now we're going to learn the deep pulse reading. The most stable layer of the pulse tells us the state of our pulse over a long period of time. So let's innocently read the pulse again. We'll start with the surface pulse. And then we will press the fingertips all the way down until we cut off the pulse completely. And once that happens, we can slowly take the pressure off until we feel the pulse come through. Now, these may be very different qualities than we found on the surface pulse. So assess what you're finding there under the vata, pitta, and kapha fingers. What gunas, what qualities are being found. Come back to the surface pulse and write down your experience. Now, it should take a couple of minutes to assess the pulse. We're just doing a speed through here so you can practice on your own. Now, just remember that it takes a lot of practice and a lot of time to become more sensitive. It's like training the tops of the fingertips. Training the tops of the fingertips takes time. You don't become an Olympic champion in one practice. It does take training. It does take time. So the more you practice, the better you will get, the more sensitive you will get. So what qualities did you experience in the surface and deep pulse? Were there vata, pitta, kapha qualities under any other finger other than under their own? And if so, that may indicate an imbalance. Now, we are not going over much of the imbalance aspect today. We're going to save that for the next lesson. But just briefly, if there is an increase under, as you can see on the middle slide, under vata is increased, and that might mean that there would be a decrease then in another dosha. It would be disturbed. So the volume, amplitude, or intensity would be changed. And you may feel this as feeling imbalanced or feeling unnatural. Now, what can we do if we are finding that there's other dosha qualities in other doshas where they don't belong, or an aggravation or intensity? There are a couple things you can start doing right away. One is a Dinacharya, which is called daily routine. There's many aspects to a daily routine, but thinking about the qualities of vata, pitta, and kapha in the environment and attuning more to them. So our digestive fire, our digestion is strongest in the middle of the day during pitta time, between 10 and 2. There is a connection or a relationship between our digestion and the sun. So the more we can attune to the rhythms in our environment, the more balanced our own physiology will be. So waking up early and doing our morning routine earlier on, such as in kapha, is a stabilizing time of day. We can drink boiled water, will help reduce toxins in our system. Tongue scraping starts our digestive fire, and transcendental meditation, connecting with consciousness, connecting with self. So eating our largest meal in the middle of the day, having a light meal in the evening, also winding down with transcendental meditation around 5-6 p.m., and going to sleep before 10 p.m. So you'll notice that pitta starts at 10 p.m. That's a more lively time of day. You may have a harder time falling asleep if you go to bed too late. And finally, here's some other stuff that we can do to balance our system. We have digestive spices, cumin, coriander, fennel. You can drink that as a tea, incorporate that into meals, sip boiled water to reduce ama or toxins, transcendental meditation to connect with self and to consciousness, attune to natural rhythms of the planet by grounding, attending to our circadian rhythm, and eating proper timed meals. Eat similar foods or opposite foods, also called samana and vishesh. So if you're vata and you're on the drier side and it is a dry time of weather, you might want to eat less dry foods, opposite foods such as soup. And nadi vigyan, reading the pulse, going back to the measurement theory. What we put our attention on enlivens the object of attention. We are balancing the pulse by putting our consciousness on the pulse, which governs our physiology.